The first time my brother saw me after 6 years, he didn't recognize me. That should have hurt. Instead, it terrified me. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon in Richmond, Virginia. I was standing behind the counter of my little bookstore, arguing with a delivery driver about a box of damaged children's books, when the bell above the front door rang. I looked up. A man in a gray jacket stood just inside. He looked older, thinner, but I knew those eyes immediately. Nathan? His face went completely still. Claire? My hands stopped moving. It was my younger brother. The last time I'd seen him, he was 19. Now he was 25. He stared at me as if he'd just seen someone who was supposed to be dead. Then his eyes moved around the store. At the framed photographs. At the shelves. At the little reading corner where my 6-year-old daughter Sophie was coloring a picture of a blue house. Then he looked back at me. You have a daughter? I couldn't answer. Nathan slowly pulled out his phone. Mom said you didn't want children. Something cold moved through my chest. Your mother hasn't spoken to me in 6 years. He lowered the phone. I know. Then why are you here? He looked toward Sophie, then back at me. I found something. He reached inside his jacket and placed an old black notebook on the counter. I recognized the handwriting on the cover immediately. My mother's. My stomach tightened. Nathan? I found it in Dad's workshop. He opened the notebook. The first page contained dates, amounts, names, payments, my payments. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, because 6 years ago, my family had told everyone in our hometown that I had abandoned them. They said I was selfish. They said I'd become obsessed with money. They said I'd walked away from the people who raised me. But that notebook was about to prove something very different. My name is Claire Morgan. I'm 33 years old, and for 7 years, I had been paying my family to love me. It started when I was 24. I just finished my accounting degree while working nights at a hotel. My father had lost his construction business after a terrible partnership. My mother called me crying. Claire, we're in trouble. I remember sitting on the edge of my tiny apartment bed, staring at my bank balance. I had $2,100. How much do you need? Just enough to get us through this month. So I sent them $800. My mother cried harder. You've always been the responsible one. I smiled when I heard that. I thought it was praise. I didn't realize it was the beginning. The next month, she needed another $900, then $1,200. Then the property taxes came due. Then Dad's truck broke down. Then my brother needed tuition money. Then Mom needed dental work. Every emergency somehow found its way back to me. And every time I hesitated, my mother used the same sentence. We're family. At first, I didn't mind. I worked more hours. I skipped vacations. I stopped buying things for myself. I told myself it was temporary. But temporary became routine. By the time I was 27, almost $2,000 disappeared from my account every month. I stopped asking where it went. They stopped asking whether I could afford it. The payments simply became expected. Then one night, I was sitting in my car outside my apartment when my mother called. Your father's insurance went up. I closed my eyes. Mom, I can't keep increasing the amount. There was silence. Then her voice changed. Claire, don't become the kind of daughter who counts every dollar. I looked at my checking account. $478. I had been working 60 hours a week, and somehow I was the selfish one. That night, I opened my laptop. For the first time, I calculated everything. 7 years. Every transfer. Every emergency. Every just this once. The number appeared on the screen. $138,600. I stared at it for almost 10 minutes. Then I closed the laptop. I didn't feel angry. I felt empty. The next morning, I made a decision. I would stop. Not punish them. Not expose them. Just stop. I transferred enough money to cover one final month. Then I called my mother. I'm done paying the bills. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask if I was okay. She simply said, then you're not our daughter anymore. 3 days later, my aunt posted a message in the family group. Please pray for Claire. She's going through something and has chosen to separate herself from us. By that weekend, everyone had a theory. I had joined a cult. I'd gotten into drugs. I'd stolen money. I'd become ashamed of my family. Nobody asked me. That was the clever part. Nobody needed to. My mother had already answered for me, so I left. I moved to Richmond with 2 suitcases, $3,000 in savings, and no idea what my life was going to look like. I found a tiny storefront with cracked windows and terrible fluorescent lighting. I rented it, painted the walls myself, built the shelves with money I probably should have saved, and 6 years later, that little bookstore was mine. So was the apartment upstairs. So was the quiet life I'd built. And most importantly, so was Sophie, my 6-year-old daughter. She loved dinosaurs, strawberry pancakes, and asking questions at exactly the wrong moment. She knew I had parents. She knew I had a brother. She knew we didn't see them. I never told her they hated me. Children shouldn't have to carry adult grudges. Then Nathan walked into my bookstore. He looked at Sophie again. "Mom said you didn't have any children." I swallowed. "Your mother hasn't spoken to me in 6 years." "I know." He looked down at the notebook. "Claire, I didn't come here because Mom sent me." That surprised me. "Then why?" He turned the notebook around. "I came because I think we've been lied to." My fingers touched the old cover. "What does that mean?" He opened it to a page near the middle. There were numbers everywhere. But beside one of the payments, my mother's handwriting said, "Claire doesn't know." I looked at Nathan. "Doesn't know what?" He shook his head. "That's what I've been trying to figure out." Then he turned to the final page. At the bottom was a date, 6 months after I left, and underneath it were 5 words. She must never find out. I stopped breathing, because suddenly I wasn't wondering why my family had told everyone I disappeared. I was wondering what they had been hiding from me. And after 6 years of silence, I was finally about to find out. Nathan stayed in the bookstore until closing. Neither of us touched the notebook for several minutes. Rain tapped against the front windows. Sophie was upstairs watching cartoons, completely unaware that the past I'd spent 6 years burying had just walked through my front door. Finally, Nathan broke the silence. "Tell me everything." I looked at him. "Everything? Why did you leave?" I almost laughed. "You really don't know?" He shook his head. "Mom said you became obsessed with money. Dad said you were angry because nobody appreciated what you did for the family." I stared at him. "That's the story?" That's all I knew. I pulled out a chair. "Sit down." Nathan sat. And for the next hour, I told my little brother the truth. I told him about the first $800, the second payment, the truck, the property taxes, his tuition, the dental bills, the emergency transfers. Every time Mom called, she made it sound like the family was one missed payment away from collapse. Nathan's face slowly changed. "You paid for my tuition?" "Most of it. I thought Dad did." "He told you that?" Nathan looked down. "I didn't know." I opened my laptop. The spreadsheet was still there. I had never deleted it. 7 years of payments. Every date, every amount, every reason. I turned the screen toward him. "Add it yourself." He stared at the total. $138,600. I nodded. He leaned back. "Claire, I know. No, I mean, that's insane. I know." He looked at the notebook, then back at me. "Why would Mom keep records of all this?" That question stayed between us. I opened the notebook. The first pages were exactly what I'd expected. Dates, amounts, names. But then I noticed something strange. The payments weren't always going toward household expenses. Some were labeled church renovation. Others, Sharon's son. Family emergency. Investment. I frowned. Investment. Nathan leaned closer. "What's that?" "I don't know." I turned the page. There were more. $7,500 investment, $12,000 property, $18,000 business reserve. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She told me the roof was leaking. Nathan looked at me. "Was it?" "I don't know." I kept turning pages. Then I found something that made my hands go numb. A property address. I recognized the street. That's not their house. Nathan shook his head. "No." "What is it?" He pulled out his phone. "I searched it yesterday." He showed me the screen. It was a commercial building, 3 storefronts, a parking lot, a large sign above the entrance. Morgan Family Holdings. I stared at it. "What is this?" Nathan swallowed. "Dad's company." My heart started beating faster. "What company?" He looked embarrassed. "That's the thing. Dad never told us." I stood up. For years, I had believed my money was keeping my parents alive. Now I was looking at a commercial property with their name on it. "How much is it worth?" Nathan searched again. "About $600,000. I laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. $600,000? He nodded. "According to the property records." I walked to the window. Rainwater ran down the glass in long, crooked lines. All those years, all those overtime shifts, all those weekends I had spent working while my family went on vacations. I had thought I was keeping them afloat. Maybe I'd been building something for them, something they never told me about. Nathan spoke quietly. "There's more." I turned around. He opened the notebook again. "Look at this." There was a page dated 7 years ago, the month I made my first payment. My mother's handwriting was unmistakable. "Claire believes this is temporary." Underneath, "Do not correct her." I felt the room tilt. I sat down. She knew. Nathan didn't answer. She knew from the beginning. He nodded slowly. I stared at those words. For 7 years, I believed I was helping my family through a temporary crisis. My mother knew it wasn't temporary. She had planned for the payments to continue. Then Nathan turned another page. "Claire?" I looked up. There was a list of names, relatives, friends, people I recognized from family gatherings. Beside each name was an amount. Some were thousands of dollars. Some were tens of thousands. Who are these people? People Mom helped. I frowned. With my money? Nathan didn't answer. He didn't need to. At the bottom of the page was a total, $41,300. I closed my eyes. My money hadn't just supported my parents. It had become a private bank for the entire family, and nobody had told me. Then Nathan pulled another document from his jacket. I found this in the same box. I unfolded it. It was a property agreement. My name was printed at the bottom. I stared at the signature. My stomach dropped. I never signed this. Nathan looked at me. "What is it?" "Transfer of interest." "Meaning?" I read the document again. My parents had apparently transferred my financial interest in the commercial property to themselves. Except there was one problem. I had never owned the property, and I had never signed the document. Someone had copied my signature. Nathan's face went pale. "Mom forged it?" "I don't know." "You know it isn't your signature." I looked at the page. "I know." For the first time that night, I felt something stronger than sadness. Fear. Not fear of my mother. Fear of how far she had gone. I called an attorney the following morning. I expected a long conversation. Instead, she asked me 3 questions. Did I have records of my payments? Yes. Did I have copies of the original bank transfers? Yes. Did I still have the original documents my parents had sent me? Yes. She paused. Then don't contact them. Why? Because if they're hiding something, you don't want to warn them. I looked at the notebook on my kitchen table. How bad could it be? Her answer was quiet. Bad enough that they kept records. I hung up. For the first time in 6 years, I wasn't running from my family. I was waiting. And that scared me more, because if my mother had spent 6 years convincing everyone that I was the villain, I suddenly wondered what she would do when she realized I had proof. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived. Cream-colored. My mother's handwriting on the front. My hands started shaking before I even opened it. Inside was an invitation. My parents were celebrating the 10th anniversary of their business, and at the bottom, beneath the gold lettering, my mother had written a personal message. Family belongs together. Come home, Claire. I read it twice. Then Nathan called. Did you get it? Yes. Are you going? I looked at the invitation. No. He was silent. Then he said, you need to. Why? Because Mom is planning something. My chest tightened. What? Nathan took a breath. She's going to tell everyone you came back because you regretted what you did. I closed my eyes. Of course she was. 6 years later, she still wanted control of the story. But Nathan wasn't finished. There's another reason I think you need to come. What? His voice dropped. I found a recording. My eyes opened. What recording? The day after you left. I stopped breathing. Mom was talking to Dad. What did she say? Nathan was silent for a moment. Then she said if you didn't come back. He paused. They would make sure everyone believed you abandoned them. I stared at the invitation in my hand. For 6 years, I had wondered whether my family had misunderstood me. Now I knew. They hadn't misunderstood. They had chosen the story, and suddenly, I knew exactly where I needed to go. For 6 years, I had imagined what it would feel like to see my mother again. I had pictured anger, maybe tears, maybe one of us finally saying everything we'd swallowed. I had never imagined receiving an invitation to celebrate the business she'd built with my money. The card sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days. I didn't throw it away. I didn't answer it. I just kept looking at those words. Family belongs together. Come home, Claire. It was almost insulting how innocent it sounded. Nathan called me that Friday evening. "Are you coming?" "I don't know." "You should." "Why?" "Because you need to hear the recording." I'd already heard enough to know my mother had planned the story, but I still hadn't heard her voice. Nathan sent me the audio file. I put on headphones. For a few seconds, there was nothing but static. Then my father's voice. "What if she doesn't come back?" My mother's voice answered, "She will." "How do you know?" "Because she's Claire." I froze. Then Mom continued, "She can't stand knowing people are disappointed in her." My father's voice became quieter. "And if she doesn't?" There was a pause. Then my mother said, "Then we'll tell them she chose to leave." I closed my eyes. 6 years. 6 years I'd spent wondering whether I'd been too harsh, whether I'd misunderstood, whether maybe I really had abandoned them. But there it was. Her voice, calm, certain, planning the story before anyone had even heard it. I removed the headphones. Sophie was sitting at the kitchen table drawing a picture. "Mommy?" "Yes." "Why are you sad?" I smiled. "I'm not sad." She looked at me. "You are." Children notice things adults think they're hiding. I walked over and kissed her forehead. Sometimes grown-ups remember things they wish they could forget. She nodded as if that made perfect sense. Then she returned to her drawing. Ladona said. I looked at the invitation again. I knew what I had to do. I was going. Not because my mother wanted me there. Not because I wanted forgiveness. Not because I wanted revenge. I was going because she had spent 6 years telling my story without me. And this time, I would be in the room. The anniversary event was held on Saturday evening. I drove 6 hours. The entire trip felt strangely familiar. The same highways, the same gas stations, the same exits I'd taken years earlier when I still believed going home meant returning to safety. I arrived just before sunset. The building looked completely different from what I remembered. New sign, fresh brick, landscaped entrance, a polished glass door, and beneath the company name was a smaller plaque. Morgan Family Holdings, established 2019. I stood there staring at it. 2019. The year after I'd started sending the larger payments. My stomach tightened. My money wasn't just part of the business. It had been the beginning. I walked inside. The room was packed. Neighbors, business owners, relatives, people from our old neighborhood, people who hadn't spoken to me in years. Some recognized me immediately. Others whispered. I heard my name more than once. That's Claire. She actually came. I thought she moved away. My mother saw me before I reached the back of the room. For half a second, her face changed. Then she smiled. That smile. The same smile she'd used when I was a child, and she'd already decided what I was going to do. She walked toward me with open arms. My baby. I stepped backward. Don't. Her smile stayed in place. We've missed you. No. Her eyes narrowed. Claire, you haven't missed me. The people around us suddenly became very interested in their drinks. My mother lowered her voice. Not here. I looked around. Why not? She leaned closer. Because tonight is supposed to be about family. I almost laughed. Then maybe you shouldn't have spent 6 years telling everyone I abandoned mine. Her jaw tightened. Then she whispered, You don't want to do this. I looked directly into her eyes. I'm not the one who started it. She stepped away. For the first time, I saw something behind her expression. Fear. It lasted less than a second. Then she turned toward the stage. The event began. A local businessman spoke first. Then one of my mother's friends. Then my father. He talked about sacrifice, hard work, building something from nothing. I stood in the back of the room listening to him describe the business as if it had appeared through sheer determination. Not one word about my money. Not one word about the daughter who had worked double shifts to fund it. Then my mother took the microphone. The room became quiet. She smiled warmly. 10 years ago, we had almost nothing. I looked at the polished floor. Almost nothing. That's what she called it. Then she began talking about family, about loyalty, about forgiveness, about people who sometimes lose their way. My skin prickled. She was building the story again, right in front of me. And sometimes, she said, God gives us the opportunity to bring someone home. The room turned toward me. My mother smiled. Claire? I didn't move. Come up here, sweetheart. I stayed where I was. Someone near me whispered, She's being invited on stage. My mother extended her hand. Come home. The room applauded. My heart pounded. 6 years ago, I would have walked onto that stage. I would have smiled. I would have apologized. I would have accepted whatever version of the story she offered. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I walked toward the stage. The applause faded. My mother smiled wider. She thought she'd won. I stopped at the bottom of the steps. "I'll come up." Her expression softened. Then I added, "But I'm bringing something." Her smile disappeared. I turned toward Nathan. He was standing near the back wall. He nodded. He walked forward carrying the black notebook. The room became completely silent. My mother stared at it. "Where did you get that?" Nathan answered before I could. "Dad's workshop." She looked at me. "No." The word echoed through the room. My mother froze. Nathan had never spoken to her like that. Not once. He opened the notebook. "I found records." My mother stepped toward him. "Those are private." Nathan looked at me, then at the audience. I think everyone should know what Claire's money actually paid for. My mother reached for the microphone. "That's enough." I stepped onto the stage. "No." She looked at me. I took the second microphone, and for the first time in 6 years, I had the floor. I looked at the room, at the people who had believed I was selfish, at the people who had repeated my mother's story, at the relatives who had accepted my money but never once asked why I was struggling. Then I said, "My family told you I abandoned them." My mother whispered, "Claire, don't." I continued, "They didn't tell you that for 7 years. I was the person paying their bills." The room went silent. I looked at Nathan. He opened the notebook and turned to the first page. The truth was finally coming out. And this time, nobody could interrupt it. The room went completely silent. I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner above us. My mother stood beside me, still smiling, but I could see the panic behind her eyes. Nathan opened the black notebook. He turned to the first page. "This is the first payment," he said. $800. Someone in the crowd whispered. Nathan continued. "Then $900. Then $1,200. Then the property taxes. Then the truck repair. Then tuition." My father suddenly stood. "Nathan, that's enough." Nathan looked at him. "No, Dad, it isn't." Those 5 words seemed to change the entire room. My brother had spent his entire life avoiding conflict with our parents. Now he was standing in front of everyone, holding the evidence they had hidden. I took a breath. "My family told you I disappeared because I didn't care about them." I looked directly at my mother. But I didn't disappear. I paused. I stopped paying. A murmur moved through the crowd. I continued. "For 7 years, I sent money to my family almost every month. Sometimes it was $800. Sometimes it was $2,000. Sometimes more." I held up the spreadsheet. When I finally added everything together, the total was $138,600. Someone near the front whispered, "138,000. My mother stepped toward me. "That doesn't mean anything." I looked at her. "It means everything." She shook her head. "You were helping your family." I was. "Then why are you acting like a victim?" That question hurt, not because it was new, because it was the exact sentence she'd been using my entire life. I looked at the audience. My mother is right about one thing. She stopped. I was helping my family. I pointed toward the building around us. But I didn't know my money was being used to build this. The room went quiet again. Nathan raised the notebook. The property records show that the company was created shortly after Claire's payments increased. My mother looked at him. "You're my son." Nathan swallowed. "I know. How can you do this to me?" His eyes filled with tears. "I could ask you the same thing." My father sat down. He looked exhausted. I pulled another document from my folder. "This is a transfer agreement." My mother stared at it. "And this is my signature." She looked away. "I don't know anything about that." I held it up. "I never signed it." Someone asked, "What does it do?" I answered, "It transfers financial rights connected to the property." The room erupted in whispers. My mother shook her head. "You're twisting everything." "No." I looked at her. "I'm finally explaining everything." Then I turned toward the audience. "I didn't come here to destroy my parents." I placed the documents on the table. "I came here because they destroyed my name." My mother started crying. Real tears. But this time, they didn't make me feel guilty. They made me tired. She looked at the crowd. "I raised her." I nodded. "You did." "I sacrificed everything for you." "I know." "Then how can you stand there and humiliate me?" I looked at her for several seconds. Then I said quietly, Because I spent 7 years protecting you from the consequences of your choices. The room became still. And you spent 6 years protecting yourself from the consequences of mine. She didn't answer. I continued. When I stopped sending money, you didn't call to ask if I was okay. I swallowed. You called me selfish. When I left, Dad didn't ask where I was going. I looked at him. He asked me not to make Mom more upset. My father's eyes dropped, and when everyone started asking what happened to me, you let them believe I abandoned you. I looked around the room. Some of you believed I was on drugs. A few people lowered their eyes. Some thought I joined a cult. Some thought I joined a cult. Someone in the back whispered, "I never said that." I looked at her. Maybe you didn't. Then I looked back at my mother. But someone did. My mother wiped her face. You could have come home. I shook my head. I tried. She looked confused. When? Every time I sent money. Silence. I kept coming home through those payments. I pointed toward the notebook. Every transfer was me saying, "I still care." My voice cracked. And every time you asked for more, I thought I had to prove it again. I took a breath. But love shouldn't need receipts. Nobody moved. Nathan closed the notebook. Then he stepped beside me. "Mom," she looked at him, "why didn't you ever tell Claire about the property?" My mother didn't answer. "Why did you keep telling everyone she abandoned us?" Still nothing. Finally, my father spoke. "Because we were afraid." I looked at him. Afraid of what? He looked at my mother, then back at me. Afraid you'd stop helping. There it was. The truth. Not an accident. Not confusion. Not misunderstanding. Fear of losing my money. I felt something inside me finally release. For years, I had wondered what I'd done wrong. Now I knew. Nothing. I hadn't failed them. I had simply stopped being useful to them. My mother stepped toward me. "Claire, please." I looked at her. Being needed is not the same as being loved. She began crying again. I continued. I spent years trying to earn a place in this family. I looked toward the door. I don't want that place anymore. Then I took Sophie's hand. She had been waiting near Nathan. "Mommy, are we going home?" I smiled. Yes. We walked toward the exit. Behind me, my mother called my name. "Claire!" I stopped. For 1 second, the old instinct came back. Turn around. Fix it. Apologize. Make everyone comfortable. Then I looked down at my daughter's hand in mine, and I realized I had someone else to protect now. Not from my mother, from becoming me. I opened the door and walked outside. Nathan followed us a few minutes later. He didn't say anything at first. Then he looked at Sophie. "Can I still be her uncle?" I looked at him. "That's up to you." He nodded. "No money." I smiled. "No money, no favors. No favors. Just family?" I looked at my brother. "Just family." And for the first time in 6 years, that word didn't feel like a debt. It felt like a choice. The parking lot was almost empty when Nathan came outside. I was standing beside my car with Sophie holding my hand. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Nathan looked at me. I don't know what happens now. I looked toward the building. Neither did I. For 6 years, I'd imagined confronting my family. I had imagined shouting. I had imagined making them regret everything. But standing there, I realized something unexpected. I didn't want revenge. I wanted my life back. Nathan looked at Sophie. "Can I see her again?" I smiled. "If you want to." "I do." "Then come visit." He nodded. "No money." I laughed softly. "No money. No asking you to fix anything. Good. Just me." I looked at my brother. Just you, that was the beginning. Not a perfect family reunion. Not forgiveness overnight. Something much more difficult. A relationship without obligation. Nathan started visiting once every few weeks. Sometimes he'd help me rearrange books at the store. Sometimes he'd take Sophie to the park. Sometimes we'd sit for hours talking about everything we'd missed. He apologized more than once. I told him he didn't need to carry our parents' choices. But I appreciated that he was trying. My father eventually sent me a letter. It was only 1 page. There was no excuse. No explanation. Just, "I'm sorry I looked away." I read it 3 times. I didn't answer immediately. For the first time, I understood that I didn't have to respond just because someone finally apologized. I could take my time. My mother was different. Her letter was 7 pages. There were memories. There were explanations. There were accusations disguised as questions. There were Bible verses. There were sentences about everything she had sacrificed. But 1 word was missing. Sorry. I folded the letter and placed it inside a drawer. I didn't burn it. I didn't tear it apart. I simply stopped letting it control me. Months passed. The business my parents had built eventually collapsed under the weight of the legal dispute and financial problems. The property was sold. Some of the money was returned to me. People who had once whispered about me started apologizing. Some admitted they had believed my mother without ever asking for my side. Others never apologized. And strangely, I didn't need them to. Because I finally understood something. Truth doesn't become true because everyone believes it. It becomes true because you know what happened. One Sunday morning, Sophie and I were painting the front door of our bookstore. She got blue paint all over her hands. Then her face. Then somehow, the dog next door. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the brush. She looked at me. "Mommy?" "Yes?" "Why don't we see Grandma?" I knelt beside her. That question had always frightened me, because I never wanted my daughter to inherit my anger. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "people love each other but don't know how to love each other the right way." She thought about it. "Can they learn?" I smiled. "I hope so." She wrapped her arms around me, and for a moment, everything felt quiet. 6 years earlier, I thought leaving my family meant I had failed. Now I understood the truth. Leaving wasn't abandonment. Sometimes leaving is the first boundary you ever set. For years, I had confused being needed with being loved. If someone needed money, I gave it. If someone had a problem, I solved it. If someone was angry, I apologized. I thought that was love. It wasn't. It was fear. Fear that if I stopped being useful, they would stop wanting me. The day I stopped paying, I discovered who actually wanted me in their life. My daughter, my brother, a few people who never asked what I could give them. And eventually, myself. So if you're listening to this because someone in your family keeps reminding you of everything they've done for you, remember something I learned far too late. Gratitude is not a lifetime debt. Helping someone because you love them is beautiful. Being pressured to keep helping because you're afraid they'll stop loving you is something else. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to leave. And you are allowed to build a life where love doesn't come with an invoice. 6 years after my family told everyone I had disappeared, my brother found me. He expected to find a selfish woman who had abandoned her family. Instead, he found a bookstore, a little girl, a peaceful home, and a woman who no longer needed permission to exist. I didn't disappear. I simply stopped playing the role they had written for me, and that was the day my real life finally began.